always, okay, why am I getting a message? Okay.
Turn on the recording.
Okay, what was fascinating was the husband and wife, particularly in a divorce case, having disagreement about that. I mean, just simply before any content ever got discussed, the couple used that, to argue with each other and go, well, if she's having sex, I want to know it, and that would be the husband. And the wife would go, well, or the mother would go, well, it's not all that important to me or whatever. And anyway, I just found that use of that tool within informed consent, and then what that meant to the work that could be done, also just fascinating.
So you put it in your informed consent, the things that you will talk about, disclose with.
I don't, it's the military chaplains that I was supervising.
Oh, got you. Okay.
It's not me personally.
Okay.
It's the military chaplains. This was at Fort Benning in Georgia. And essentially they would hand the mother the list and the father the list. And basically, as part of informed consent, I'm going to be working with your 15-year-old. I'm going to be working with your 16-year-old, whatever, your teenager. I want to know in advance, what do you want to know as parents? And this meant then that for the therapist, that information was disclosed in the opening session with the teenager.
With the teenager. That's great.
Okay. The teenager is told, if you're smoking, neither your mom or dad care. If you're having sex, both your mom and your dad want to know about that. And I, as a therapist, am compelled to tell you that. That's sort of what that discussion would be. And you can pretty well imagine, particularly 6 months later in therapy, those boundaries got crossed and all that kind of stuff. But I found it a fascinating part of that whole informed consent that I had never experienced before. And it was, good for both the therapist, and I think probably fairly good for the family unit to begin thinking about and talk about boundaries within family. I mean, it was fascinating to consider all that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, because then is the 16-year-old going to actually share with their therapist that they're having sex, right? Because I'm compelled to tell your parents now, they want to know, right? So yeah, that's a very interesting one. What do the rest of you do who when you're working with kids, or if you worked with them in the past, or your supervisees? Yeah, Jasmine.
Well, I just want to go back to something quickly with the divorced couple.
Yeah.
What we do at my company, because it's really not practical for someone to, forward you their divorce document or part of it in terms of, who can make the decisions. What we do very simply is, let's say there's one parent that brings in the kid. If the other parent will not be participating, then we just get the other parent to send in writing an email saying that, yes, they are the other parent, and that, yes, they do consent to, so-and-so kid going in with the parent so-and-so name and just dated. And then we just print out a copy and put it in the file.
Interesting. Okay.
Wow. Nice parents.
Has anyone moved towards all like electronic health records and the signatures, and how do you find that to be when you're dealing with this situation, right? Do you know for sure that both parents did consent, right? Or did one click for the other one, right? Anybody thought about that?
each parent needs to be send electronic records for them personally to be signed. If you, I mean, we do that. I don't see young people, but I see couples,
Yeah.
and you have to send individual
Yeah.
paperwork to each responsible party, whether
Yep.
it's for a child or for the people themselves.
But I mean, I know in my case, right, my husband and I have a shared email address for things like this, for, you know, when, well, our kids are older now, but for when our, you know, we had kids in school and all that kind of stuff, we had we had a Schnell's, you know, email address. And so, yeah, go ahead, Cynthia.
So by using encrypted things where it's not on, like if you use Sign Now, or like I do, or, you know, all my paperwork doesn't go, I can either send it through Sign Now, or for my EHR, it comes to them and they sign it and it comes to me, and it's not even, you know, they can get a copy, but it's not on their computer. You have to know the code and how to access into the account, the password, and then you can see the information.
So you're making sure that you have both signatures and that both parties are consenting when you're dealing with couples. And that was my next one. When you're dealing with couples or families, right, where everyone here is an LMFT, we have some dual LMHCs and LMFTs, but everyone here is an LMFT. So when you're dealing with families, when couples, you need to get everyone's consent. What happens? You're dealing with a couple and they're married, they've signed or whatever, and now they're going through a divorce. How about that? What do you do there? Do you get new paperwork if you're going to stay with one member? Do you see? Okay, hold on. Does anyone see both people if they're getting divorced?
Yeah.
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 And so do you do two separate new files?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And so then now we have a new file. They don't have access to only the joint file. Do they both have access to?
Well, I don't know that they really have access to the joint file anyways, because I mean, that's not completely true, right? Like, people have rights to individual privacy. So they came in for an individual consultation, and in a couples therapy process, that particular consultation could be considered private and confidential. And I often tell my couples, they could reveal to me things like, hey, I'm on heroin and my partner doesn't know, right? Like, or I'm sleeping with 5 other people and they don't know. And I let them know this up front. Like, of course, most of them kind of laugh because I'm making it sound so crazy and preposterous, but at least they kind of know up front. So I do a lot of verbal, like, hey, sex, drugs, rock and roll with your teenage 16-year-old. You know, before they even come in, we've already discussed how it's going to go down in my office. And you know, then they've already ruled me out if they don't want to see me.
Yeah, that's great.
Right.
Yes, go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, and there needs to be a discussion about when it's conjoint records for a couple, that they would both have to sign a release to have access to that information, because they could use it against each other, and that's not the purpose of our work. We don't want to be involved in that. So yeah, that it's conjoint, and so it is conjoint release. And usually if there's a divorce, if one party asks, I get permission from the other to see, but I do not see both, because I just feel like I don't trust myself not to have a bias, or something else is happening. I don't want to be in the middle of that. So as a rule, for some people are able to do that, but for my own ethical boundaries, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah. And some people are fine with it and some people aren't, right? And so this is not a law. This is your ethics, right? This is your personal morals, right? Yeah. Okay. So anybody else have anything they want to talk about in terms of informed consent with minors, with couples, with families? How about, does anybody do groups? Yeah, go ahead, Annalyn.
So the legally,
Uh-huh.
if parents are married, either one of them can consent, and it's assumed that both are consenting.
Yep.
But if they are not married, this is the legal piece now.
Mhm.
If they are not married, that's where having the custody information is important. And so whoever has the health custody part of it is the one that can consent. So that's what it is legally, but I agree that clinically, ethically, getting the both to sign on would be the clinical grease that we want for these wheels, even if legally one could consent over the other. Because
So this is where ethics is above the law.
Mhm. But I do
Exactly.
think here you have to be careful, and maybe it's because I see particularly difficult parents. I don't think ethically it's always the best. I mean, there are sometimes there's a reason for the divorce, and this parent has a lot of problems. And them knowing who their child's therapist is would be a very big detriment to that child. So this is where, and by the way, this parent won't have any problems locating the document that says they have medical decisions. They'll have it. They got a copy on their phone. They can download it and print it to you. I mean, because they have a parent that is untreated for their psychiatric disorder, and it's pretty alarming. And that is probably, unfortunately, I see a lot of difficult couples. So that is why I see some of that stuff happen.
Mhm.
But those parents always have the legal document handy because they know.
Yeah, because they know. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Right, on that note, I have a teenage client who's about to turn 18, but I mean, her dad lives in New York and there's virtually no contact, and the mom is the legal guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So,
So there's
reaching out to the dad, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
Right.
Yeah. We somebody in my practice, the dad doesn't even live in the country. Right.
Yeah.
So did we get consent from the dad? I mean, no. He wasn't, there was no way to reach him. He was not in the picture. Let's see. Yes, Edie.
I have a question about the consent form. You said something about good faith, that we've all included that, and I'm not sure what you meant.
So Edie, are you in private practice?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So January 1st, the No Surprises Act went into effect. Are you aware of that?
Not at all.
No. Okay. So let's talk about this.
Right?
Okay. So January 1st, the No Surprises Act went into effect, and basically this was this act was put into place for, like, you go into the emergency room, you have emergency surgery, blah, 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 or whatever. Your anesthesiologist isn't covered under your insurance. You don't know about this. Now you're hit with a huge out-of-network bill, blah, 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 right? However, the wording, so this was to protect people, right? But the wording didn't exclude us as therapists, even though in our informed consent, we go over with our clients what our fees are. If you take insurance, you talk to them about, what their copay is, what their deductible is, right? You go through all that with them. Yeah, but we were not excluded from this talk. So if you're in private practice, if you don't take insurance, first of all, we are required to ask, do you have insurance? Would you like to utilize your insurance? Now, a lot of times, if you're doing couples therapy, there's no and maybe there's no diagnosis, right? Like, then we have to explain to them, but yes, you have to then tell them. If you are out of network, you have to, like your private pay, I should say, sorry, you need to give them a good faith estimate of what your services will be. And so and you have to have something on your website, something in your office, like a statement, like a, you know, like, and so you have this year to implement it, but you there is a lot of stuff out there. I'm wondering, Annalyn, if we should do a because I see people writing. I wonder if FFTA should do a good faith estimate, No Surprises Act little seminar kind of thing. So yes, you have to have this posted in your office. You have to have this, this is separate. It cannot be part of your informed consent. It is a separate form. Somebody can call your office and ask for a good faith estimate. And it's, you know, you have to write this all up. It takes time or whatever, and they might not even come to you. Yes, Cynthia.
If you use Ivy Pay, which is, you know, for therapists to collect payment for copays or for amounts, or some EHRs offer this free. I made my own when it first came up and put it on my website.
Yeah.
But they will do this, they will send it out to your clients. So if you use Ivy Pay, that's free, and it, you know, goes out to each.
There were ones in the EHRs as well that you can send out, but you need to make it has to be individualized, right? So there has to be the person's name and their birthday. They do all that for you. In the beginning, a Simple Practice was not doing that, and so I made something for everybody.
Yeah, and before they made that, when it first came out, I made everything myself.
Yeah,
so I had that, and then now they offer it for free. So all that work for no reason.
Yeah, and there was they were going back and forth with the wording, possibly changing and including, even if you take insurance, you have to provide it. So, but they haven't. Things keep just getting pushed. So anyway, if you
I have a question. As part of my package that I've always had, I have a fee document that says this is the fee, this is your name, your birth date. It has all that information on it, and they sign off on what the agreed fee for service is. It sounds like in addition to that, there has to be something posted in the office
on your website. Yes.
Okay. So and under Psychology Today, we have what our fees are.
Yes, I know. It is a very silly thing that we have been included in this, because we are very forthcoming as therapists with our fees, but we have been included in this and we are required to do it at this
So
point.
we have to say it differently than the way it's
it can't be part of your normal intake paperwork. It has to be a separate thing.
Okay.
I have a question about, is it simply about your fees? Because I used to have people sign a fee contract agreement that I also signed. So, but what about the length of time of the service? Are you also required to estimate that? Because that's the cost. I mean, there's a fee for one session, but then how many sessions are you going to have? Do you have to?
I know yes, it's absolutely. It's very, I know many of us in January or in late December were trying to figure out what the wording should be. And some people said they're just going to do, you know, my sessions cost this much and I'm going to see you weekly. And so my good faith estimate, oh, by the way, I think it's, I want to say, I can't remember the exact number. I think it's 400. If you are wrong by $450, you could get up to a $10,000 fine. It is ridiculous, right? So people were saying, okay, you know, therapy for the year with me is going to be, you know, $20,000. And then other people were like, you know, hey, I'm going to scare the crap out of these new clients and they're not going to want to do therapy with me, right? And so a lot of people then kind of agreed on more doing like a fee schedule, like, you know, this is how much this service is, and, you know, this blah, 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 and giving it that way so that people
You just said new clients, so this is my last question.
Oh,
You
no,
said
it is with
you have to go
every
back.
single client. Yes, you have to, everyone, and it has to be done yearly. It is only good for a year. So everyone yeah, I had to go through everyone who started back with me in January, all my old clients. I had to go through and give them the thing. And again, this coming January, I will have to do it all again.
Stacy, I've got a question.
Yes,
Oftentimes, as I'm sure we're all aware, people change their insurance. And so,
yes,
so you have to do this all over again every time they change their insurance.
yes. Well, and so right now, if you go through the insurance, you don't necessarily have to do this, is what it was saying. However, everyone that takes insurance in my office is actually doing it anyway, because there was talk that it was going to change come March, then it was the summer, and then it was October. I don't know. So everyone is
you
covering their butts in my office, at least.
So, but the law basically is for people who are private pay in your office, not insured.
That is what the law seems to read.
Okay.
Yes. So it's for people, so they're not surprised. They don't get stuck with a bill, if they're using out of network, if they're doing private pay or using out of network benefits in your office.
Okay.
And that was really what it was about. But what happened here? I lost you guys. Hold on a second. There we go. Sorry, I lost you for a second. It just went away. So yeah, but in terms of people who take insurance, one more thing just to put so that they would know, hey, I think it's easier with insurance. This is your deductible, this is your copay, this is how many sessions you have. So it's a little bit easier. But yeah, it has to be a separate fee schedule. It has to be a separate form. There has to be a paper, displayed in your office, and if you have a website, on your website.
But again, mostly for private pay patients.
It's the way it's reading is it's for private pay and for out of network people who are using out of network benefits.
Is there?
I will say, so because they keep saying that it would include insurance at some point, we in my office have gone above what the law is saying, and we are in my office providing it for everyone.
Okay.
And is there a template somewhere, or is that something you guys can direct us to at some point? You're talking about displaying it in your office. It's going to be a generic kind of thing. You obviously are not going to display everybody's, weekly, or are you? I mean, if you're seeing me every week.
Oh, no. The statement on your website is a statement, and yes, but yeah, yes, Cynthia.
If you know Becky DeGrossa of Private Practice Builders, she has some kind of a service where they will, I don't know if it's done individually or she just has one that she sends out, because I made my own, but she will do it for you.
Thank you.
Kate and Katie did one that you can get for free, Private Practice Startup. There is, I think somebody put it in the chat, I'm not sure, the stuff about the No Surprises Act. And I'm thinking, based on this conversation, we probably need to do a whole separate thing on this. Yes,
we
Mark.
could definitely book a 1 hour event to go over that and share forms and things like that. Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I've heard about it.
All right. So are we, can we move on? Okay. All right. So let's talk about confidentiality. What are the limits to confidentiality? And have any of you ever had to breach confidentiality? So what are our limits of confidentiality? When do we?
Mandated reporter for child abuse, neglect, or endangerment, physical or exploitation of a senior citizen or disabled adult.
Right.
Yes.
Signed a court order for something legal or an arrest.
Yep.
If there's an imminent danger of hurting themselves or someone else. In
Yep.
Florida, we can warn. I'm from California where we had to warn. So, so I think those are all of them.
Right. So there's the difference between the mandated duty to warn versus not, right? The Tarasoff. Yeah. Yeah. So anybody have a story they want to share about a time that they've had to breach confidentiality?
Child Protective Services.
Right.
Just did that about a week ago.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You too, Margie?
Yes, I did. And it was during my internship, actually. So in my early parts of my training. Yeah. And it was very distressing because I have had those feedback from other colleagues who have said in many cases, they've certainly done a lot more work with children, but in many cases, they felt reporting was going to be causing difficulty for the child, that it would be more detrimental for the children. So, that's the other piece, having that, knowing that it's our responsibility. And then we have that's, we've taken a commitment to that, but then also knowing that the possibilities are that this person, and it was a mother who believed in spanking and not with an open hand. It was from a diverse population. So it was hard, and telling her, and then she never came back, and I have been making inroads with this young girl. So
yeah, that's the really hard thing, right?
Yep. And particularly when the system doesn't work as we wish it would work.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where this ethical dilemma comes, right? Right. We're mandated reporters by law. We have to report certain things, right? But ethically, what's going on there, right? Like ethically, we feel like, oh, this is not in the best case of the child, maybe, or whatever.
Right.
Yep. Or so at this point, law comes before ethics.
Right.
Yeah.
And as much as possible, you engage the person or the family in the reporting of it, as much as possible to engage them in the process.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And is there statute of limitations when it comes to reporting?
Reporting? I don't believe so.
No, but you can get in trouble if you don't report soon enough, especially if a child or an elder is in imminent danger.
Absolutely.
So you have to
Yes.
report within a reasonable time if there's danger that could possibly be happening.
Right.
Actually, the language of the law is immediately.
Yes.
Those are the nights where you work late. Filling out those reports.
Even nights where you're working late, you have to report immediately. Yes. Some people get.
Yeah, you don't just, I'll get to it tomorrow when I wake up.
No.
Right. People try to say back to me, oh, you have 2 hours or you have 24 hours. No, that's the investigators. The reporter is immediately. But again, that's in the law. So as you can see, the law and the ethics keep smushing up against each other. Did we say, Staci, that one of the ways you can break confidentiality is to defend yourself in a lawsuit?
Oh, we did not, but thank you for bringing that up. Yes. Yes. If we are being sued and we need to defend ourselves in a lawsuit, we can absolutely break confidentiality. And all of these things should be in your informed consent.
Uh,
Yeah, that.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question about the Child Protective Services? So you have in Connecticut, we have a 24-hour care line. So you can call and make the verbal report immediately, and then you have 24 hours to do the written report. And very often we would call and do the verbal, and they would tell us, well, we're not really likely to even pick that up. So, so it was a informal kind of working together, but we could do it verbally immediately, and then the follow up with the paperwork. Do you have that here?
No.
No. Okay. Connecticut's a very small state.
Yeah. We had one of my therapists reached out to me last week and said, Mom just called me. They have a session later on. She had just gotten child back from the weekend with dad, and child had a mark on them of some sort. And mom called Child Protective Services on dad. And so my therapist in my office said to me, do I have to report it too? And I said, did you see it? Is when the child comes in, or do you want to report it then? Do you know for a fact that mom reported it? Right? Like, so she's like, so I have to report it too? Yeah, you report it too. They'll tell you, we have this report already, or I don't, or I'm accepting it or not accepting it, but you have to report it.
Yeah, if they report it, I just ask them for the report number or the name of the person they made the report to. And then you just double check it to make sure it's been reported.
That it's been reported. Oh, thank you, Renee. That is actually helpful.
That's Annette.
I'm gonna go buy Annette today.
Oh, Annette, sorry.
That's okay if we don't have it down there.
Yes. Sorry. And I know you're Annette. So, but Renee, on my screen, the name Renee is literally on you. So that's great.
Well.
Renee is not on Renee. It's on Annette.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Let's any more anybody else want to talk about breaching confidentiality? Any times that you have done it, had to do it?
What about for a collection agency to put on the informed consent that if you have to send someone to collections, you have to give a name?
Yeah.
That's an informed consent.
How about with infectious disease with when
Mandatory CDC reporting.
Yeah, it all needs to be in your informed consent. So, when we were seeing people face to face during, COVID or whatever, we had a separate informed consent about that.
Oh, okay. The COVID policies.
The COVID policies, there had to be separate ones.
Right.
Yes, and Lynn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's probably been a really long time since any of you took the HIV training, but there is a option to warn if you have a client that reports that they plan to have unprotected sex, that where the client is HIV positive and they plan to have unprotected sex. We are not mandated to report, but we have the option to report. But we have to go through 8 steps to be able to do that. So all of the clinicians that I worked with in the HIV world said it's not mandated, so I'm not going to do it. But if you felt like you had to, you have to have documented that the client is HIV. You have to document that that they named a person that they planned to unprotected sex with or had unprotected sex with. You have to tell them the many options they have to tell the other person, or that inform them that they need to tell the other person, like you can go to the health department, things like that. You have to, if the person says, neither am I going to tell, nor am I going to stop, you have to tell the client that you plan to reveal this to the other person. And all of this has to be documented. We won't even talk about what happens clinically at that point. Then, in order to, you have to contact the person that you plan to tell, and you have to meet with them face to face. You cannot tell them who it is. Yes, you have to bring them into your office and you have to meet them face to face. You cannot tell them who the other person is, but you do have to tell them that they are at risk for HIV infection, and you have to educate them on where they can get tested and get help and all that kind of stuff. And you have to have separate charts. So this is a separate chart on a person who is not a client. You have to maintain these records, and you have no reason to charge them for your time. You can see why most people opt to not do anything.
But is that actually breaching confidentiality, because you're not telling them the name of the person that wants to have sex with them?
That's a really great point. That's a really great point. But if Jose is telling me he's HIV positive and he plans to have unprotected sex with his wife, Maria, and you get Maria, she is not stupid.
She probably knows Jose is going to see you as well, so.
Now, what some clinicians do that work with HIV is they go through another door and they say, did you know that in Florida, if you knowingly infect someone with HIV, it's a felony. So if it's partner to partner and they can identify who it is, and that's a felony. I don't know if everybody remembers, well, from in Miami Beach and South Beach years ago, there was a nightclub owner and all these women came down HIV positive and they were able to identify, and that was a felony. So I know some people that's how they approach it, rather than.
But we're not going to be the ones that call in the felony, because we're
No, we just say, did you know? Just put the fear of the law. Yeah, that's all it is, really.
Yeah. So I just wanted to contribute that.
Okay. And
I have a question.
yes, Cynthia, sorry, I had to see who it was.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe there was a law passed in Florida. In Maryland, if a parent asks to see the clinical notes, you have to show them. I thought a law was passed in Florida where that is not true, that even children have a right to privacy. Am I understanding that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's it's in the confidentiality for young people here, and I can't remember the age, but yeah, is it like 7 or I don't remember.
I'm sorry, Cynthia, what's the question?
So
how old?
If a child is a client, that you don't have to share the record, well, most of us marriage and family, I don't see kids, but if I did, I would see with the parents. But let's say I'm supervising somebody and they don't do that. I just want to make sure I understand the law in Florida, that parents don't necessarily have a right to see the clinical record. I mean, maybe they could sue you, but they don't have a right. And I don't know what age limit that is. Is it like for 2-year-olds or, and up, or 4-year-olds and up?
My understanding from what I read is over the age of 12.
Okay.
And it's you see?
I think it's younger.
It's not in statute.
Oh,
It's not in statute. The confidentiality laws that we are under have no age limit. So a 1-day-old has confidentiality.
Okay. So it's
now will parents' attorneys fight you on that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, of course they will. And here's where I will recommend to you to go to the Florida Interest Network YouTube channel and go see the 2 workshops we did on You've Been Served, Now What, part 1 and 2, where we talk about many of these very legal issues.
Annalyn, sorry, the
Yeah.
microphone wasn't 100% clear. Can you repeat the workshops to see on YouTube? Because actually I was not aware of that. I mean, by coincidence, I haven't had anybody request their, notes. Like that's actually just not happened, but I did not know that parents could not request if they were a minor.
They can request, but you don't have to comply.
Right.
So I'm putting it in the chat.
Now, okay, and now, can we comply? Is there a reason that we just?
No. You'd be breaking the child's confidentiality.
What if parents though have here and there participated in the sessions?
That's different because so you've not broken you can't break confidentiality because everybody's been in session all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you fall back on whether you think it would be useful, clinically correct, ethically, for them to have actual copy of your records. You have the option in the law to write a summary.
Yes.
But obviously you want to talk to the client. What do you want to do with these records?
Right.
You want a whole conversation about that.
Yeah.
This tends to show up in divorce proceedings.
Yeah.
Where you have one parent pitted against the other. And this is where, again, those workshops about what you do in court to maintain the client's confidentiality, which is your ethical and legal responsibility, and yet you're being, brought into court over that. And in all situations, the judge is your only friend, and even then, you probably want to bring your own attorney.
Yes. Yeah. Bring your own attorney.
For your attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, your attorney, your only friend, really.
I have the name of a guy that specializes in doing that kind of work for us.
Yeah. There's all sorts of reasons why you probably wouldn't want to give any client your notes.
Can you show that again?
I'm still
You're
showing
holding it, but you're not on the screen, Annalyn. If you say something, Annalyn, you'll pop back on the screen.
Steve Ballinger. He's in Weston.
I go away if I'm not talking.
There we go.
Yeah, it's really hard to hear you, Annalyn. I'm wondering if your microphone isn't working and it's just going through your computer.
Can you use your computer or no? Oh. I don't know. She's just pretending.
I think she is.
Or what?
I think she is.
She's going to try a different headset. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the difference between medical patient records and psychotherapy notes. And what records do your clients have the right to obtain?
The medical records, not the psychotherapy notes.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never had any client in 25 years need these, so.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lots of hostile divorces, so there's good ways to get around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, go ahead, Cynthia.
I've had one person request it for a domestic violence situation, and they ended up resending it because the other person cracked and stopped the shenanigans that they were doing. But, I have CPH insurance, so I called and I talked to an attorney and figured out how many days I had to get this record to her and how much I could charge per page and all of that. But fortunately for her and for me, the other party decided that it would be better to drop what they were doing. So it can happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's talk. This was going to be a break time, but we are going to roll right through. Okay. Okay. So how about let's talk about dual relationships. Let's talk about that. What are some dual relationships?
You run into somebody in the grocery store. They work with your partner. Their kids go to school with your kids. You're picking up your kid from some friend's house, and it turns out that friend's parents are your clients. These are all the dual relationships I find myself in regularly.
Okay, and what do you do? What do you do?
Well, dual relationships aren't necessarily harmful. I mean, usually if I know that they had kids my kid age, I say, listen, I got a kid your kid's age. It looks like our kids might go to the same school. What if we were to run into each other? So I might address this in the initial intake. But overall, if we haven't really talked it through clearly, I just say, hi, I'm Annette Ryder. I'm so-and-so's mom, or good to meet you. Or, I just act like I would in meeting somebody else I didn't know. Oftentimes, though, for the most part, people just generally say, oh, Annette, she's our therapist. Like they disclose in front of everybody.
Yeah. So I just tell people flat out, if I run into you at Publix, I'm not coming up to you to say hello.
Right.
If you choose to come up to me, you can, but you're breaching your confidentiality, right? If you choose not to, that is fine. I don't think you're being rude. You're protecting your confidentiality. So in 2018, I expanded my office, and now nobody uses my office. It's just me. So I wanted to put up, my wedding picture, a picture of my kids, right? My daughter's like, you're going to let your clients see me? And I'm like, child, my clients see you all the time. We're season ticket holders to the Panthers. Like, I have tons of clients that are Florida Panthers season ticket holders. They see me all the time with you, right? We happen to be at a Miami Heat game. We're talking about this. Literally 5 minutes later, one of my clients comes running up. Staci, it's so good to see you. Oh my God, this must be your daughter. Your mom is the best therapist. Da, 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 da. In the middle of right? He gave up his confidentiality. I did not. Right. And my daughter's like, oi, okay, you can put my picture up. Right. So yeah, I mean, we just have to warn them. Let's talk a little bit about social media, right? So do you guys have something in your documentation about social media? Are you on social media?
No, I
right?
shut off of it totally.
Right. So my practice, we have a practice Facebook page, a practice Instagram page, right? And hey, clients, I tell them, if you feel like following us or you're already following us, fine. Don't give yourself up on, don't give your confidentiality up on social media. Don't say, oh my God, we were just talking about this yesterday, right? Or I'll see you tomorrow at 2, right? Don't give yourself your confidentiality up. Protect it. Now, what if a client tries to friend you personally on Facebook?
I know.
Like, what if? How about all the time, right? Like, yeah, I just don't friend them back. And then if I am still currently see them, we talk about it the next time I see them.
Right.
What about on LinkedIn?
Oh, LinkedIn, I probably would consider the client, but honestly, LinkedIn is like a bunch of perverts always trying to date you. It is the worst professional thing I've ever been on. I've never gotten so many crude men trying to date me. It's disgusting.
No, I usually, for me, it's people who want to try and sell me something for my practice, like that's what it's constant. But yeah, what if somebody tries to, friend you on LinkedIn? Do you accept that? I think on Facebook or your personal Instagram, that's, what about on Twitter, right? Those are, I think there's a difference between Facebook and Instagram than Twitter and LinkedIn, but I think ethically, we don't cross that boundary.
Well, the word friend says it. We're not friends. I'm your therapist. We have that relationship. So friending you is not appropriate. I care about you, you care about me, but it's not a friendship, right?
Yes. Exactly.
I was going to say the other circumstance is if you're in a spiritual community and you have a client and you are involved in doing, care services for the homeless or whatever, and you have this client, that's the other thing, is to make sure that the person knows, look, I'm not your friend, because I know I don't participate in things. If I have a client that is in my spiritual community, I don't have a engagement with them in something that they're doing. That's just a cautionary note for myself.
And there's some tricky things. I got an email today from someone saying so-and-so recommended you, and it's a client that's just a real sweetheart who I haven't seen for a number of years, and we had a sad goodbye and she was leaving the state, and so this person's like, so-and-so said I really need to be with you, and I was tempted to say hey, right? But I would have breached the confidentiality of this client that is the so-and-so person. And so I simply responded without even acknowledging this sweet person who probably was expecting a hey, but I didn't do it. So it's interesting. You said something about being careless or being aware. I think that, again, someone calling and saying, oh, I know that you're seeing so-and-so or you've seen so-and-so, and that pat answer, I can neither, actually I got a statement from the AAMFT attorney on what to say when somebody calls to ask. And I'll see if I can't find it real quick, but I'll see if I can find it and tell you guys.
I can't confirm or deny.
Yeah, I usually say, I'm glad you got a good referral, but I can't confirm or deny if I know who you're speaking about.
Yeah, this was more fun though. Okay, so he said, in response to any request for information, I need a signed release in dealing with records for any client. So because I said to him, oh, I can't confirm or deny, and he said, well, here's the line. I need a signed release in dealing with records for any client. We were talking about an attorney situation, but that, just FYI.
What happens when you're seeing people who know each other, friends or whatever, and they're like, oh, oh, Anna must have told you this story, or Susie must have told you this already, right? I just sit there and don't say a word.
Yeah, you just say, stay mute and smile.
Well, actually, I would probably say, like, if I knew who Susie was, why are you referring to her? Because my clients are pretty well trained. If they know I see somebody they know, they're not going to, I pretty much tell them up front, if if there's any possibility there's crossovers, there's a chance I could close with somebody if I felt they were trying to manipulate therapy or manipulate me in regards to therapy that I might or might not be doing with somebody else. So they're not going to probably say things like, I'm sure Susie told you this to me, because we've already kind of talked about this.
Mhm.
And I pretty conveniently forget other people while I'm sitting with people. It's probably just because I'm old and tired, but like that's really how it goes down for me these days. Like, Susie, oh, I mean, like half the time it's back in my brain. I'm like, oh, I think they might know them. Like, yeah, that's their best friend, but I've already forgot that.
Right. I try and make an effort not to put people who know each other back to back. Years ago, I that happened to me by mistake, and so I put and they like ran into each other in the waiting room, and I was like, ooh, like that was a boo-boo. And so now I'm really, really, really careful.
But you won't always know. You don't always know.
You don't always know if they know each other, right? Yeah, but I mean, if I knew, like, oh, so-and-so recommended, and that's why they're coming in, and I make a conscious effort, and I'll tell other people in my office, hey, this client knows that client, don't put them back to back, like.
I actually had two people run into each other in my lobby. I now have a back door right out of my office, so that doesn't happen anymore. But I actually had them meet, and they had not seen each other in many years, and they ended up getting married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was funny. So the guy did come in after the wife, the woman, when they first met, and he said, oh my gosh, I saw so-and-so. I haven't seen her in years. She looks great. And he looks at me, goes, tell me she's not crazy. And I just started laughing. Whoa.
I had a situation when I was seeing kids, seeing teenagers, and this was after the incident of people knowing each other or whatever, and I was so good, but something happened and somebody rescheduled, and all of a sudden I've got, this teenage boy sitting on my couch telling me about the new girl at his school who is so mean. And then I realized that the new girl who's so mean is my next client.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to get this guy. And it was before I had a back door. And I'm like, I got to end this session early before she gets here, because this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I did. I ended the session early.
Yeah. I was just reminding Renee, this was a while ago, but a young man came back to me because he wanted to fess up that he was, he'd seen me like 2 years earlier and not come out to me in the session. He wanted to say, come out to me. He just felt like he needed to come out to me. And so he's in the session coming out to me, but then he also tells me that he had an affair with his cousin's wife. And right. And guess who was coming in next? His
cousin's wife.
But I had no idea that they were related or knew each other. They didn't get referred from the same people. They did not know they were both coming to me. And so I'm doing everything I can to get this kid who is like so excited to come out to me. And I'm, like, I want to be rewarding of that, but I'm also trying to get him out. It's a bigger office building, so he could have been coming out from anywhere, but then he went and sat outside and smoked cigarettes and called his cousin, who was driving to see me with his wife, for, this affair that they knew of, but they didn't know it was the cousin. I mean, they literally pulled out. It was a mess. I also had a client get into a car accident outside the building while I was on the phone doing a consult with the other therapist. And that other therapist drove over that was Beth.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's been a lot of little crazy. It's a practice. I had two people going on a blind date that evening together, and they both were seeing me, and I had no knowledge. They didn't know each other. It was a blind date.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And they both had sessions of all days. The day they were coming to therapy, they had a blind date that night. Both of them with the same person. It's just
I
You
was
can't make these things up, can you?
I was in
Oh, yeah.
Yogurtland with my mother-in-law and my daughter. And one of my, and this is when, again, when I was seeing teenagers, and one of my teenagers comes up to me and starts talking to me. And my daughter knew, like, I don't know, she was maybe like 12, but she knew to, you know, zip her lip and not say anything, right? And she kind of walked away. And my mother-in-law was so mad at me. I can't believe you didn't introduce me. She thought because the girl who came up to me was my son's age, that it was a friend of my son's. I can't believe you didn't introduce me. What, you know, who was that? Whatever. And I couldn't say, I can't tell you, because then she knows it's a client, and I just took the lashing, right? You know, and my mother-in-law is the nicest woman in the world. And I have the most amazing relationship with her. And I was like, she's mad at me, you know, but I had to protect the confidentiality of my client. My daughter figured it out and just kind of walked away. Like, I know she doesn't go to my school. Like, I know that's not my brother's friend, right? Like, yeah, I mean, it happens, you know, our client, we tell our clients, you choose to come up to us, right? But I still wasn't going to say, this is my client, to my mother-in-law, right? Like that, I still have the ethics there to, you know, to keep that in place. All right.
Staci, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Is it all clear? Okay. So certainly for new clinicians, or those of us who are supervisors want to share with new clinicians, this issue of training our families to understand that this thing might happen. So it's not enough that we know it or that we've been trained in it. Our families have not gone through the master's program. They don't know any of this. So we do have to train them to understand that there will be times that we can't say anything, and they just have to accept that, and that we can't tell them about our work. That, you know, if they ask you how our day was, we're not going to tell them any details. And so, you know, those of us who have been doing it a long time, we know that, but as supervisors or as new clinicians, it's something to pass on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, I tell that story a lot to my supervisees. I'm like, you've got to share it with, you know, because my child, you know, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old at the time or whatever, she knew if my mother's not introducing me to somebody, I should probably turn around and walk away, go taste some frozen yogurt. But my mother-in-law was just kind of standing and hovering and like just didn't take the hint, like, I cannot introduce you to this person. Yeah.
When that's happened to me in a restaurant or anywhere, I will get up and walk out with the client. So the client will come up. I mean, the family was having dinner, and I stood up and kind of did one of these, and we walked outside, and that was the end of it. Came back, nobody asked me a thing, and continued eating. So that's kind of been our way of dealing with that.
I was at coffee or tea with another therapist, and one of my clients walked in and gave me the, you know, knowing look and walked away. And the other therapist went, oh, that must have been a client. Like, you know, like, you know, like knowingly, like, you know, I'm like, I can't confirm or deny. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, you know, most of the time. Oh, okay, wait, here's one more. How about if you are out having a good old time and there's clients there or whatever? Like, has that ever happened to anybody?
I've had to leave more social events than I even want to think about.
Yeah.
But this is what we signed up for, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I was in a, you know, bar with our families. We were doing shots and having a good old time. All the cousins were in town. There comes in, you know, clients, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they cannot like see me like this. This is not, okay. I'm not, you got to act professional. I had to like, hey, cousins, let's go somewhere else now, please.
Yeah.
What about knowingly going into a place that is known to be doing something illegal?
I'm too old.
Yes, too tired.
Not anymore.
Too early.
Okay, so Irma, have you heard of Club 11?
No.
No, okay. Anybody?
No.
Jasmine.
In the Fountain Blue Hotel, in the Fountain Blue
No.
Design District. Those are the only two places.
Yeah, Jasmine, do you have anything to say about 11?
No comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
All I can say is that I've never, so I live in Miami, but I work in Hollywood, and I've always wanted to work somewhere away from where I live to try to avoid that. And so far, I don't know, to be continued, but so far that's happened. I've never run into anybody anywhere. We'll see what happens.
okay, so I work in Broward, and I was with the cousins in Dade, and that happened. So you never know. The client that came up to me at the Heat game, that was, whatever. Anyway, okay, so Club 11, they tell you, first of all, you will get thrown out if you turn your phone on. There are no pictures taken in there. There's no video taken in there. And I had good friends coming from New York for some reason. Hello, we are in our 50s. Why? They needed to go to Club 11. I'm like, I can't go. We ethically, right, do not put ourselves in situations where knowingly illegal things are happening.
What is this Club 11?
What is it?
It is a club in Miami, and let's just put it this way. Yeah, I mean, a lot of illegal things happen there.
Like,
I mean, in all fairness, a lot of
to-
illegal things happen in most of the nightclubs in Miami.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
including Live. Someone mentioned Live nightclub.
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's
yeah.
really not any different in terms of, the kind of.
But they make a big deal of saying, well, no, you cannot turn your phone on in here.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. All right.
I have no idea. I have to stay up past 10.
All right, let's talk about somebody calls you, wants to see you, but it's not something that you do or you have training in, or what do you do then?
Do everything I can to help them find someone.
Exactly, referrals, right? We don't work beyond our scope. Yeah. Okay, that was, yes, Annalyn.
So yes, the ethical code said that we do not work beyond our scope. However, when you're starting out, you don't know anything and you have no scope. You have no scope. And so therefore, in order to expand our scope, we might work with such clients for whom we don't yet have expertise, but we need to put other things in place. What would others put in place? Like, for instance, Edie, you were starting to learn internal family systems. When you had never done any cases in IFS and you had only the very first bit of training, you were technically working outside of your scope. What did you do to mitigate that?
I did it very gently. I put my toes in the water, and I had a part that didn't want to do it. So I had to work with, I worked with an IFS therapist on my parts to become more confident, to deal with the aspects of what that was. And I very gently moved into it. I started in 2016, I think, and I probably didn't really do the work for 3 years. So I allowed myself to, to get comfortable with it. And I got lots of supervision, and I actually, I did my own IFS work, which I think is one of the best ways to learn it, because you're totally immersed in it.
I had a similar experience with emotionally focused therapy and that whole training program. And the way I handled it was to basically say to the client, I'm learning this new model. I'm being supervised, and I was.
Yes.
Actually, I would sort of say, in that case, session, and I don't remember, session 8 or session 20 or something like that. I'm going to be taping it, submitting it to the supervisor, and we're going to review it and all that sort of stuff. And I'll need you to sign in advance all of that. I didn't have a problem with it at all, but I did up front. Yes, I've done couples therapy. I've done it for 10 or 15 years. However, I decided I wanted to learn this particular model. I've heard a lot of good things about its effectiveness and all that sort of thing. I think it's very appropriate to you for these following reasons or whatever it is. But you need to know, I have a relationship with an external person in which we're reviewing, this work. And I don't know, it felt okay to me, and the 2 or 3 clients that I work with, that was sort of the way it worked.
Anyone else?
One other way I would recommend is, if it's possible, is to do co-therapy with someone who is competent in it. So if you're wanting to learn any particular way of doing work, obviously you get training, but then if you can also do either co-therapy, or let's say you're wanting to learn to be a hypnotherapist, you might watch several, you might do several together, sort of like they do for mediation, right? You watch some, you do some together, and then you do some on your own under supervision. But so it's important. Yes, we don't work outside of our scope, except there are ways we have to, we want to expand our scope, and so there are ethical ways for going about that.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and I assist in EFT and AEDP, and so in the small groups, when you're assisting, people work on each other with each other, and that's a really nice way to start, because therapists aren't going to throw up crazy scenarios, and you can learn, and then you meet people who are assisting that you might get supervision from, or things like that. So a lot of these approaches in the training programs have a lot of ways that you can get connected to others for support and supervision.
Yeah. What about advertising? And how we sign our name and how we're out there to the world. What if somebody calls you doctor and you're not a doctor, you're a master's, right? Yeah. What about these things?
Well, I know I was going to say that was something I remember from Stetson. They were always saying it. They say, oh, hi, Dr. Grebin, or doctor. No, I am not a doctor. I am an intern in marriage and family therapy. In other words, always let them know. Some people, maybe their egos say, wow, that's really great. That's one of the things that was said. Make sure that people know what your stance is in the profession. Yeah.
And I want to say also that there's a cultural component. So my students, when they're working with, clients, that are Spanish speaking, they will automatically call them doctor in
Doctor.
Spanish. And even though the student corrects them,
Yep.
they continue to use
Isn't
the
that
title.
funny? Yeah.
So, it's part of the culture, down here in South Florida. But as long as you're correcting them and you're really telling them your identity, and hopefully, you have your credentials on the wall,
Yeah.
but some days it's just a habit that they have from their countries of origin.
At what point do you give up? Do you ever give up?
They just give up because, they keep saying doctora or doctor, and yet the credentials are on the wall. And it's just, I think it's more out of respect than anything. And remember that when they sign the informed consent, there's no doctor written on there as well.
Yeah. I had somebody, I can't tell you how many times I corrected her. And she finally stopped calling me doctor to my face. But if she were to text me, hey, I need to change our appointment, or I'm running late, or whatever, it was always, doctor, I'm running late, or doctor, can we change the appointment? I'm like, I am not a doctor. Like,
Right. Right.
I think it's out of respect, and I think there's a huge cultural component. And
Yes,
so we
there
want to
is.
be very careful. We don't want to be offensive either. We
Yes.
want to be respectful,
Right. So what do you say? Right. Because we need to correct in that situation, but how do you do it without, doing it rudely or hurting their feelings by continuing to correct them, right?
Richard had an idea. Richard had you could have an idea.
No, I was going to say it was fascinating for me. I went to work for a community agency, and I have a PhD. However, the PhD is in communications. The PhD is not a clinical psych degree or whatever. And but the agency CEO wanted that credential. There was just in terms of publicity in the community and all that. And I said, you can't use it, because it really is a misrepresentation.
Yes.
And I'm sorry. Yes, I am Dr. Long, and I am Dr. Long within the university context. And if my students want to use Dr. Long, they're welcome to do that. However, in a clinical setting, I'm not Dr. Long. And
that's excellent.
You can't put it on
example.
because they were doing business cards, and they were doing the website, and they were doing all those sort of, public promotional things. And I just had to, say, sorry, you can't do it. There would be occasional things in which some student, would come in who would be seeing me as a client, and they would use Dr. Long in the hallway or whatever it is. And I just let that go, because it really wasn't.
Right.
It was almost a private conversation. It wasn't something in which some other clients were going to get the impression, that it was an inaccurate impression. But, that's been my experience with it. And it is interesting here, because I've moved to South Florida, that I'm, equally careful about that. Because there are, like with the guardian ad litem thing, it sometimes gets confusing depending on what they're trying to accomplish in their public relations and all that kind of thing. And I have to, again, clarify,
Do any of you have supervisees in private practice?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about that and how they say they are a registered marriage and family therapist intern or registered mental health counselor intern, right? Not an RMFTI, right? There is no such thing.
Right.
And the conversation I overheard somebody many years ago, this is before I required me to be the supervisor if somebody was in private practice in my practice. And I heard her on the phone saying, you know, I'm pre-licensed, I'm provisionally licensed. I'm like, there is a provisional license. You cannot say that, right? You know, they cannot misrepresent themselves.
Yeah. The two that I have both, although they have a private practice, they also are part of a group too. So they, and since they have to do it in their, I mean, it's just been very clean. It's been
It's
easy.
very clean for them. Okay.
Yeah, to just say, because they have to say it in their group practice, and then and I'm the supervisor for both. So it just, yeah, it's very clean. They're pretty good about it. It's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and as supervisors, we have to ask them, bring us your professional card, show us how it looks, because sometimes with electronic medical records, they have to go to the IT person and not initialize it because the medical records did that automatically, or they say there's not enough room for it. And I'm like, you got to talk to IT and get that fixed, because that's a legal issue. That's not just, it's an ethical issue of misrepresentation, but it's a legal issue because it's in statute.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to address students that are medical doctors in their countries of origin, but they are not licensed here. And I've had to warn them, please do not use that title. Please don't put it in any of your business cards or on your voicemail message or any type of advertisement. You have to be very, very careful. So that's another dilemma that I've dealt with throughout the years, because it's Miami, it's such an international, and our university is so international. So I've had to really address that, to be very careful. I had a student of mine in my ethics class way back in the day in the master's program, who was a medical doctor trained in psychiatry at the time in Venezuela, who had patients admitted at the hospital back then, who used to fly in a private plane to come to get the class that he needed so he could become licensed as an LMHC. So I had to spend time with him to warn him that his privileges that he can no longer do that down here. And was he sure that he wanted to become an LMHC? Because he had patients hospitalized. So I've been dealing with that throughout the years with these students that are internationally trained. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's a huge ethical issue, boundary issue. Huge. Yeah. And so I had a supervisee, she had some from Venezuela as well, and she had some sort of, but she was called a psychologist in Venezuela, but it was, but here she was, she was a registered mental health counselor intern. She went back to Nova and got her MHC here. I'm like, you can't call yourself a psychologist, right? Yeah. But, she had for 14 years in Venezuela, right? Like it's definitely an issue here about,
it's an issue down here in South Florida.
Yeah, it really is.
So international, but we have a responsibility, to, if you're a faculty, or if you're a supervisor with your supervisee, it's really important to really know what are their credentials from their country of origin, just to make sure that they're very, very clear that they're not misrepresenting themselves.
Yep. I have, she was a previous supervisee. She's from Russia. She had a PhD in psychology, but the United States doesn't recognize it or whatever, right? So she went to UF and got a PhD in family therapy. She was a registered intern. She has 2 PhDs. She's a professor at FIU, but she still had to, state for 2 years that she was a registered marriage and family therapist intern. Yes.
Yeah, this is the legal part, but also I'm feeling how hard that would be to have to go to all that school again.
Yeah.
Just, so it's the law, but my heart goes out to people in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, really, it's difficult, right? I mean, you're working all these years, going back to the one who worked 14 years being called a psychologist. Then you come here and you're being called an intern, right? Or to have to go back and do all that school again, both of them.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
It's the
tough.
immigrant experience, though. Remember that if we are now have to pick up and go to Venezuela, go to Russia, we would have to
You would have to do the same thing.
So
Mhm.
what I do is I try to normalize it, and I just try to say, if I were to now have to
Right.
go to your country of origin, I would have nothing. I would have no credentials, in that sense. I would have to start from scratch, and I would have to follow the licensing laws of your country. So when you explain it that way, then, you stop being the police, but you sort of are just educating them. Listen, I care for your welfare. I don't want you to get in trouble, and I don't want there to be a whistleblower. So it's important to just frame it in that context, and then they understand.
Yeah, and I think empathy also goes a long way.
Oh, absolutely. Always empathy. Yeah.
What about, so in Florida, we can not say we are a sex therapist without the certification, right? Without going through it. We cannot say we are a hypnotherapist without the certification, right? So has anybody ever seen, oh, I do sex therapy, right? And anybody ever come, never an issue for anyone? All right, we can move on. I just wanted to bring that one up. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, Richard.
Can I raise the question of certification? This is sort of tangential, but it is beginning to come up for me a little bit. And that is, it seems to me the whole certification movement is shifting. Let me give you, if I think of something like emotionally focused therapy, it was 20 hours of a training thing, see 10 clients, submit a paper, do a test, become supervised, have your tapes reviewed, all this kind of crazy hoops thing or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2 weeks ago, I took a course from PESI that certified me to be some kind of a trauma professional. And I also became a certified telehealth professional, because it was like a 2-for-1 for $199 or something like that. That basically was a paper pencil test, an online course, 10 or 12 hours, whatever it was there, and a paper pencil test at the end. And essentially I became certified. And I'm just sort of reflecting on the hoops I had to go through with one model or one approach, and the lack of hoops that I went through most recently.
Yeah.
And the whole issue of whether we're working with students, whether we're presenting ourselves in an advertising kind of way to the
Right.
whether we stick our little certifications up on the wall or we don't, or whatever it is anybody how's anybody thinking about these days? For those of you who are working with your interns, are you telling them to get certified in something because it's the idea of specializing, it sort of makes really good sense? Are you saying to them, don't waste your time, it's all about money or whatever it is? How are you talking to anybody, clients in particular, about certifications? Do you say, oh yeah, well, I'm certified in trauma and therefore you want to come see me? Do you put it on your your little advertising, or do you not? I don't want to
No, I think it's a great
direction
topic that we should discuss. It is an ethical conversation. Go ahead, Margie, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I have a fellow in thanatology with the Association for Death Education and Counseling. And my specialty, really my love, my passion, is working with people who have had traumatic loss, bereavement, their transitional periods. And I've been taking trainings for ever since I was an intern with the organization. And the thing that saddens me is that I know Anna Lynn and others have said, when you're a newbie getting training as a counselor, you have to start somewhere. But what I am finding that's really distressing to me is I will get a client coming in who has had a traumatic death and makes the statement that I've been to 4 other therapists and they all said, I work with loss, bereavement, death, grief and bereavement. And they were rude. They would say, I could not even share. They were trying to tell me what I needed to do. And that when they say one person, but when they say they've seen 3 or 4 and they really, their hands were thrown up. So I hear Richard and what he's saying. It's very easy to say we have certifications, but I think for me, I have to be really, I want to be pro client and say, no, I'm really, I've had training in this, but I don't have a deep training. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And how we go about, like Richard was saying, Pesci, you can get all kinds of different courses, right? And okay, I do that. I did take a course on grief and bereavement, but it's different.
I mean, there are a ton of LMHCs that say they do couples therapy on their websites that are not.
And some of them are good.
Yes.
And some of them are good.
And some of them are not.
Right. And so Margie, what you're describing were probably crummy therapists, not just crummy trauma therapists, just crummy therapists.
But
there are plenty of crummy therapists.
Right.
Yes.
But it's also causing additional trauma.
Yes.
So here you have a traumatic loss and you come in and you get someone who doesn't have that ability to be present with the person. And instead,
but again, no amount of trauma training is going to help them be a good therapist if they're a crummy therapist to begin with.
Okay.
Right. So what can you do? So one thing you could do is that you could put on your website all the trainings that you've attended. You can say, I have gone to all these. You can essentially put your Vita online to show what you're doing, or articles that you have written, or a conference you have attended. You could show the depth of your work. And sure, there's a 12-hour Pesci thing that you can be a certified EFT therapist. And you could read Susan Johnson's book and probably get the same amount of information.
Right.
Does that mean I'm competent in EFT? Well, it says I'm certified. So I guess it goes back to my ethics. In Florida law, there's only 3 areas that have designated amounts of education that you have to have. If you want to hold yourself out as a play therapist, a registered play therapist, you have to meet their standards to be able to claim that credential. But can you do play therapy? Yeah, there's nothing in the law that says you can't do that.
Yeah.
So it really is the pull between what can you do legally, and then where are your ethics in how much training you believe you need to have to be able to say you do this kind of work.
And also how to speak with individuals who are putting themselves out as specialists in a particular field, who are, like you say, are crummy therapists, in a way so that it's not you're a crummy therapist, but hey, can you take it in and evaluate? Does your conscience say this is something that I really know I need to have more work, right? Or continue.
Well, this This is one of the reasons that all of us who are licensed are required to take ethics and boundaries every 2 years.
Yeah.
This is one of the few educational topics we are required to do every 2 years. Now,
Yeah.
actually, they shifted that because now we can alternate that with telehealth. So it's really ethics and boundaries every 4 years and telehealth every 4 years, alternating. But yeah, I mean, hopefully all of those therapists that were crummy in my estimation are going to an ethics and boundaries class, but chances are good they're not going to a live one. They're probably going to a video one where none of their stuff gets challenged.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
There are ones that they can press the it to play, and they don't even have to pay
Go
attention.
do the laundry.
Yeah.
Cynthia.
One area that comes up more often now where I'm in an ethical dilemma is I see people for infidelity. And sometimes people come in for infidelity, and what we find out is it's actually sexual addiction or sex and love addiction or porn addiction. And I'm not a CSAT. When I started to encounter this, I didn't even know what I sent somebody to a sex therapist, a couple to, because I thought, well, I don't know about this. So this is coming up so often. I tried to screen for it, but a lot of times there's a lot of secrecy and shame.
Yeah.
So I know the signs now, and I've been to some trainings. I'm going to become an AppSat so I can work with betrayed partners, because this is coming up in serial affairs and things. But it's a whole different animal, and how you work with it, like you can really hurt people. So I don't that I refer them out, and now I know who to refer them to, because it's not a sex sat, or a sex therapist. It's a certified sex addiction therapist, or an AppSat is for betrayed partners. So I didn't even learn about sex addiction in graduate school. So it was like a whole new animal to me. And the first person that I referred to a sex therapist, the woman was so traumatized by, I won't even say what he said to her, and it was abusive and completely wrong. So yeah, so we are encountering situations where how could you know what to do, and even finding out who you refer to, and there's not a lot of these people in certain areas. So sometimes, like, I found some people now who are certified in multiple states, and so they do teletherapy. And so I've made some connections. I think because of the internet, this is coming up a lot more. I used to never hear of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. This brings me right into our next topic of telehealth, and it becoming much more prevalent in the last couple of years, and the crossing of the state lines, yeah, there's a lot going on. Okay, so telehealth, we still need an informed consent, right? What are the things that we need to know when we're about to see a client telehealth wise, right? This question literally came up again today. I can't tell you how many times I see it a week on some Facebook group. Can a registered intern do private practice and work from home? Telehealth. It's constant. No, they cannot work from home unless they have a licensed person in their home with them.
No, they can do it if they work for a not-for-profit.
Right, not private practice.
Not at home, right.
Yeah, so they have to work for a not-for-profit, but that's legal. That's a legal issue.
Yes, that's not.
Yeah, so the ethical issue is the private practice owner who allows this to happen.
Yeah.
Well, it's also probably a legal issue, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we go back to 2020, in the midst of the lockdown,
Yeah.
and the ethics and the law didn't match up with continuity of care. And what do? Do we require our the registered interns that are in private practice to go into the office and a licensed person be there, and all of this? I think during the state of emergency, we kind of went like this,
Right.
right?
Yeah, right.
But once the state of emergency was lifted, I mean, hello, we gotta, right? Then we're not doing this anymore, right? Like, it's not an ethical issue anymore. We're breaking the law, right? So let's talk about what happens if you get online with your client and you find out they're not in Florida. They're not in a state that you're licensed in.
Well, I thought the first thing we're supposed to ask people when we get online, even if we've seen them before, is, where are you?
Yes.
Are you in a room? Are you in a place where you can talk? You're in Florida first. Are you in a room where you can talk confidently? Is there anybody else there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of what we have to do before, when the session begins.
Have any of you ever said, oh my goodness, I didn't know you were going to be on vacation. I cannot see you now. Yes. And hung up on somebody? We need to reschedule, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Because they think as long as they're residents of Florida, then it's okay.
Right.
Because they figured the states got their act together and worked out something so that, people could take a vacation, but of course that hasn't happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened to me a few weeks ago. So I'm licensed in Florida and in Arizona, and I am seeing a couple. One of them lived in Florida, one of them lived in Arizona. They both now officially live in Arizona. But he came into a session and I said, where are you? Because he wasn't, where he normally was. And he's like, oh, I'm in Wisconsin on a, boys trip, blah, 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 golf, da, 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 da. And I was like, hey, let's reschedule for when you're back in Florida or Arizona. I'm not licensed there.
Now, I've had some supervisees who've had people who were traveling. You can, if you know in advance, you can check with that state, and some states allow so many visits for people for work or for vacation, but not all. And so you look at their statutes, but also call and verify, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes, like when I read the statutes, and I read them too when I have a supervisee, they're very hard to understand. So to clarify, because it gets very confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
And isn't there also a question of liability? I always have the address of the person that I'm talking with.
Yes.
And are you somewhere new? Are you still? Oh, okay, you're still at home. We're good. If suddenly something crazy happens on the screen, I want to be able to call 911 and know where to send them. I know that's probably a little dramatic, but being able to have the address every time you're on with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Staci, I have a question about, now you mentioned that after the state of emergency is over, and I know things were kind of relaxed and there was reason for that, but now they're not relaxed anymore. And so should we be seeing people virtually that are on psychotropic medications? Maybe they've just started medications. They have a mental health diagnosis. Should we be seeing some of those people virtually, or do we really need to give some thought to who we just open up a laptop or a phone to and begin therapy?
Great question. So legally, yeah, why not, right?
But ethically,
I think that goes to your own ethics, right? It doesn't, there's nothing, is there anything in our ethics that say we can't? No.
Nope.
I think for me.
So this is
think
probably
it
where
has
we
to
would have to be sure that if we're going to see that kind of client, that we're meeting with the family. And I think that's where many things that could get individual therapists in trouble protect us by virtue of us seeing the family. Because if we're working with someone who's new to medication, but we've got their parent or their spouse or whatever in session as well, we can be talking about those issues and things to watch for and what to do if there's an emergency.
Right.
That we would be hampered with if we just had the individual. Richard, you have something?
Yeah, the thing that I was thinking about is it Renee?
Yes.
Just spoke, yeah.
Yes, Richard.
Has to do with the idea of appropriateness for telehealth.
Right.
And that what Renee just did was broaden the way I typically think most of us think about appropriateness. I think most of us think about appropriateness as, can you point and click? Do you know where the camera is? Do you know, all that sort of technical kind of stuff. I think Renee is raising a deeper, more thought-provoking question, and that is, did somebody just prescribe meds to you? Or have you been, is it likely that in the next 6 months your meds are going to change? Or is there anything about your medical situation of heart failure, of neurological thing, whatever it is, that has us thinking about whether telehealth makes good sense or not.
Right.
Because if you think about, for example, our own ability to monitor in the office, somebody that's on meds and go,
Yeah.
you know what, I need to talk to them, and I need to go call their primary care doc or whatever, because they're drooling and their eyes are whatever it is. Okay, we all sort of know how to do that in the office very, very well. Well, to Renee's point, what's your ability to do that when somebody's for example, look at, I don't know whether you can see her right now, but look at Irma right now. And I would not in a million years right now want to make any inference about whether medication is working or not working for Irma right now. It's a dark background.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much light going on there. I can see Margie very well. I can see Staci very well. I can't think, Irma, I didn't mean to, you don't have to lean forward.
Right.
It's the end of the day. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I need to turn the lights on. I only have this little light over the computer.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with people with adults with ADHD. And I mean, here, looking at me right now, can you tell if my foot's bouncing up and down and I'm, fidgeting or whatever? No.
Correct.
Office, I'd be able to see that, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I think you bring up a huge topic of conversation, Renee, in terms of appropriateness. We talk about that appropriateness with, our supervisees if they're doing telehealth. Right? We have to have a plan with them and all of that. We have to realize that for ourselves as well. Hey, is this one of my clients for a very long time is bipolar. And I do couples counseling with him and his wife, and his previous psychiatrist always said, I want your wife to come in with you. Because he would just say, I'm fine. But she would tell the psychiatrist what's going on. Now, during COVID, he retired. And he said to my client, let Stacy find your next psychiatrist for you. So I did, and that psychiatrist has never met face-to-face with this client for 2 years. They have done only telehealth. Now, a couple of weeks ago, he admitted in therapy that he has been pretty low, pretty depressed for the last 5 years, but he thought that was okay because at least he wasn't manic. And he is bipolar 1, like serious. What happened 5 years ago should, like, if you opened the DSM, his picture would be in it. Like it was, right. Okay. Right. So he was like, hey, if I'm not doing all this crazy stuff, right, then I'm good. I'm not hurting anyone. So let me just stay low. I'm okay. But he finally admitted in therapy, it was a big thing or whatever. And I said, all right, I have a release. Let me talk to you. You shouldn't be living like this, right? It's okay. Talk to your doctor. Tell her that you are not feeling well. Let her change your meds, right? So I spoke to her about whatever. She spoke to him. She changed his meds. And then she said, you are seeing Stacy regularly, right? Like now she's relying on me to be the one.
I know. Wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that doesn't happen a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and also I had this come up quite a few times. In fact, my first week of doing telehealth, it was not iced tea in the glass. It was beer, right? Like, yeah, because like it's 5 o'clock and they're home.
Yeah.
And they normally have a beer
people
at 5 o'clock.
smoking weed. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't they wouldn't bring a beer to my office, but I have found that just telehealth creates a level, which is interesting, right? It kind of creates a level of relaxation. So like I've seen Anna Lynn's cat's tail and right, like, and you see how they interact with their pets, and the kids come in and out and you see like, wow, it is chaotic at your house. Like now I'm getting, but there's also some other stuff that happens that's sometimes too relaxed for the therapy to really happen. And that was one of them. And I mean, it was like several drinks in a clear glass before I was like, is that iced tea? Hold on. Is that iced tea? No, it's a beer, but I'm at my house.
But if you were in my office, you wouldn't be drinking that.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
smoking that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, they smoke it right outside the front door.
Yeah.
I had a client who was alcohol into Red Bull cans, coming in with the big tall Red Bull can, drinking alcohol in my office, until one day I was like, you don't seem right. Because I thought, oh, that has so much caffeine, and I started asking questions, and come to find out this person for I don't know how many weeks had been coming in drinking alcohol in our sessions. This particular session, they appeared drunk. So they got
So did you let them leave your office and driving?
No. Yeah. We called the spouse and had the spouse come and pick that person up. And, I called the psychiatrist, and, it was like, you cannot be drinking and be on meds, and you can't come to my office and drink. You can't come to my office drunk. That's in my paperwork. No. So it can happen under your nose.
Yeah. Right. Yes. And probably has.
Yeah. Richard.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to raise has to do with clothing. And one of my supervisees was working with a couple, and essentially, it was the end of the workday. He hopped in the shower, put on his sweats and those wife beater t-shirt thingies or whatever it is, and she put on his boxer shorts and some kind of skimpy little top or whatever it is. They climbed on top of the bed and did the couple session there. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, and the intern is saying to me, I'm doing the, well, what's that like for you? All that junk. But we got into a really good discussion about and it goes to what Cynthia is saying, in my office, can you come in drunk? Can you come in with liquor, et cetera, or can you not? Okay, and in telehealth, do I need a bathrobe on? Whatever it is that your standard is for whatever it is you think, it ought to be. And I think that is one of the, in terms of setting boundaries, and just sort of keep in mind with couples therapy, what do you think was going to happen when the computer went off?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And what does that mean for what was happening therapeutically?
Yeah.
And to Annalyn's point earlier, what are the clinical implications of what it is that we're talking about here?
Yeah. Yeah, Annalyn.
I would say the first 10 years of my career, I did almost exclusively home-based work.
Mhm.
And so I'm, moving to telehealth and people being at home, or for that matter, I have clients who meet me via telehealth in their cars. And
Yeah.
I've done that too. I've done in-car, in-person therapy, or at Chuck E. Cheese, or, I've done therapy at all kinds of strange places to meet the client need. And so you're right. Things that they might not do in office that they do at home, which is why office is a nice alternative, because if it's chaos at home, it's good to see the
Right.
chaos. I can understand that, but now if I want to get certain kinds of work done, I want to bring them in the office because it is a more controlled environment. So I think this is all clinical.
Yeah, I had a client like happy tears because I was actually going back into the office because she postpartum mom, and our sessions during COVID, she would literally, the only way she could get away from the kids was to go into the bathroom. And, the toddler came running into one of the sessions, she's sitting on the toilet to do our session, right? And the toddler comes running in, Daddy's being mean to me. And she literally was like, you're going back to the office? Oh, and happy tears.
Yeah.
I can't wait to come back into it.
And yet all of this is clinical. All of this is clinical issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Because if the only way she can get a moment's peace is to hide in the bathroom, whether she's telling us from the bathroom or telling us in the office, it's still a clinical issue.
It's still clinical. Yeah. Margie?
I do want to mention something that came up for me. I was going to be seeing a client. She had been referred to me by someone and another therapist. And so we planned the first session, and it was the husband and wife. And so we did all the informed consent and reviewed the policies and the like. And then another appointment was made, and I come into the front office to take the husband and wife in, and there sits their 3 children in the office. So, having children in an office unsupervised, there's nobody else in there, is it can be challenging for us as therapists, as far as responsibility. So I was surprised and brought them back, and they said, we don't have a babysitter. And then I went, but the person is a truck driver, so he's out on the road a lot, and they really needed these sessions. And so I ended up having a talk with one of my colleagues, and she said, when I came out to the room, we have this little area. I said, feel free, if you'd like some water, there's water there for the children, bottled water. So I came out, and there were candy wrappers all over the place because we have a jar of candy, right? The place was a mess, right? And there was one of the kids that had run out into the hallway. So I could be liable for that, right? And so I called the next day and I shared with them, I didn't want to speak with them in front of the children. And I said, listen, this is a liability. I understand she said, what do you want me to do? I said, I'm just telling you, it's a liability for us. So I don't know if that's had happened with anyone else, but I really was so blindsided because they had made the appointment. It was for the couple and they show up with these children.
Yeah, so if couples I do mainly couples now, and so if they show up or if they let me know, I'm pretty clear with them, when we're making the appointments that they need a babysitter or doing it during school hours or whatever it is. But for instance, a couple of weeks ago, I had somebody say, hey, my mom is sick. She can't take care of the baby. I mean, the 1.5-year-old or whatever. I said, bring an iPad and some headphones and, and that's how we did therapy, if the kids are old enough to sit in the lobby, they can, but they cannot assume that I can stick them in another room. I might not have an empty room to put them in.
Right.
And that's what I tell them. I'm just very, very clear about that.
And I didn't address that because I didn't,
you didn't know it, you were blindsided by it.
Right. I didn't have that understanding.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been blindsided. Anybody else?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lots of blindsiding. Yeah.
I think it's because I talked to them about it before our even first session, like I know that they have children, and then I'm, oh, where are your children going to be when you're in therapy, right? Kind of thing.
Or you have compliant clients. I mean, I talked to them about it too, and they're not compliant, right?
They're not compliant.
Or it's just, it's so chaotic, right? So they just show up with kids and there you are trying to figure it out, what to do and how to handle it. I mean, if there's two parents there, you can kind of like take one back at a time, and leave the other parent babysitting and do kind of couples work in a different way that night, that day. And
well, the issue was miscommunication between the home. The husband's on the road most of the time. So this was a situation where they needed to have that in time, in present, both of them in the office.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But if the kids can't handle it, you have to kind of go, well, I'm sorry, one of you's going to have to go out in the lobby with one of the, we'll trade off.
Right.
You're going to show them, you're going to model how to manage a crisis situation that just got popped on you, right? Here's a way to, but we have a little office. And I think one time since we've been here, I had a mother that showed up and she's got a very difficult partner. And she brought the iPods with the headsets and we put them in the office right beside mine with the door open with my door cracked. So I could hear anytime those kids got off the couch, I could hear that they were, because my seat is right there. And I was just up at them I think they're coming in and,
disruptive therapy. And, I want to be cognizant of the time. I told you guys I was going to let you leave early if we didn't do breaks. But I want to kind of end now, but I think that there's
we can wrap up.
We can wrap up.
We can begin to wrap up. Yes, we can move in the direction of wrapping up. I have a very different take on the surprise children. Is if children come, we're now having a family therapy session.
That's a good idea too.
That's what I would do. So if the kids are there, everybody comes back, and I'm going to learn things about the couple with the kids present.
Yeah.
And if the kids are present and the parents keep saying we want to work on the couple, I'm like, well, this is one of the couple issues that you get to experiment with, is how we're going to manage the kids. But if you bring kids, we're having a family session.
Mm-hmm.
I would never leave anybody in the lobby. I would not. Now, if you have the you have the kind of practice where you've got a therapist who can work with the kids, I remember when I went to school at Nova, we would have teams and we would split off 2 therapists to go work with the kids while the rest of the team worked with the parents. If you've got that kind of resources, you can do that. But if you're solo practitioner, as far as I'm concerned, presence kids equals family session.
And it
if the
was
parents say,
really-
well, we want to work on the couple, but you brought your kids, so now it's a family.
And the fact was, Annalyn, she was bringing it to me. Well, what do you want us to do? We didn't have anyone to watch the children. Well, I'm not in a position that I can have them sitting here unsupervised. You know, one was 8, the other was 10 and 9.
Oh, and they can tell you lots about the parents.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure
You might suddenly shift to structural to find out what's going on with the couple system and the parental system. You might be, you know, shifting models a little bit there. But yeah, that would be my take. But
Good
then
point.
I like family work. I like having kids. So that's a different thing. Well, so I'm aware that some people came late, and I know we had a little bit of not so much oriented conversation at the very beginning. So let's spend a little bit of time. Let me find out from each of you, what did you take from this time? Let's kind of do a wrap up that identifies what you found useful, important, you took note of, any of that kind of thing. So who would like to tell me what they're taking from tonight?
Well, this no
Me was
surprise act was a
telehealth.
surprise for me, and I'm really glad that I know something about it. And
I'm sorry, say it again, Renee. Say it again. What did you learn? What did you learn?
The No Surprise Act. I never heard about it, and I'm so glad that I heard about it tonight. So what that tells me is taking courses like this with people is very, very valuable. Not like I didn't know it and I don't appreciate it, but boy, they certainly pointed it out tonight.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Shirley.
Shirley.
I was just going to say that also. I really appreciated that part. But, I think it's been such a nice, congenial way to hear about a lot of experiences you've all had. And I've really enjoyed, thinking about a few issues that I hadn't faced yet, especially in telehealth. So I really appreciate it. And I think it's been a very nice, friendly group to work with.
Yes.
Irma.
I agree with Shirley that telehealth was very informative, especially when you're licensed in that state, but that person has traveled for a holiday. That was interesting for me.
Yeah.
Good. Who else would like to tell me? Yes, Cynthia.
I really like how you went into the about the HIV, that it's not mediated, and you can decide, and to hear all the things entailed and so I have not been in that situation, but I was just like, oh my God, no.
Yes, it's definitely disincentivizing. Yes.
Yeah, that is a good one. Alice?
So just a reminder, it's always to keep updating the informed consent form, making sure we have all these pieces in, because I'm pretty sure I don't have everything I need in there. So that was, I think, really a good reminder.
Great. Who else?
I agree. The updating of the informed consent, the No Surprises Act, the exchange from just the exchange from everyone in terms of insights on crossing state lines, on the HIV and the felony statement being something that may, cause someone to sit up straight. So all of your wisdom, I think, that you just don't get unless we do this sort of thing. So I got a lot out of it. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
And Annalyn.
Yeah.
Margie.
I love the engagement with everyone. This is so different than sitting and just listening to somebody give a bunch of slides and reviewing things. So I agree, the engagement. It was enlivening for me. It also was a refresher because a lot of the things I'm aware of, the telehealth, there are some of the things I wasn't aware of, and actually something came across my mind. If we are on vacation, I don't do telehealth that much because I do like in person, but if we are in another state, say I go to a conference and clients want to be seen, do I need to be in the state of Florida to be having?
No, I did
Okay.
telehealth all day yesterday.
Okay.
I'm in California
Okay,
right
cool.
now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it brings up other things that I'm aware of. The No Surprise Act, I know that was really crazy for me and still is not really definitive. I don't have a real definitive look. So I love the
All right,
engagement.
we'll have to definitely put something together, Anna Lynn, for that.
Yeah.
Happy to have you come teach us, Stacy. No problem.
Oh boy. Okay.
Hey, Marcy, what did you get out of today? If you unmute,
you're
I'll even hear
muted.
you.
Sorry about that. So yeah, I just love being back in the flow and hearing people discuss cases again. I missed that. And I realized when I introduced myself, I didn't say a thing about what my background is or what kind of work I've done. So next time I'll do that. But I was listening for differences in Connecticut and Mass law and from Florida. And that no surprises thing sounds like a big surprise.
Well, that's federal. That's federal.
That one's federal? Oh.
Yes, that is federal.
Right.
That is not a Florida thing. That is a federal thing.
Oh, okay. I was going to make a snide remark about some of the other unclear or non-specific Florida laws, but I won't. So yeah,
we agree that there is vagueness in the Florida law, but in this case, this is
federal.
Yes.
Federal.
It's the same level as HIPAA.
Well, I realized they were doing that for medical procedures, and I guess they're lumped us in with medical procedures. But yeah, I just learned
which is a good news, bad news thing, right? Because we want to be lumped in with medical because that gives us more autonomy and to be direct payers. But it does mean that stuff that we would be doing anyway.
Yeah, usually we get skipped over. So yeah, I loved hearing about everybody's specialties, and yeah, it was great. It was really, and it's nice. This was a nice size group too.
Yes.
Yes.
Small group.
Not too big.
Well,
yeah,
we're happy you're all here as well, and bigger would have been okay with me because this is the operating budget for FFTA. Richard is our treasurer, so he's very excited that we're making a little money here. But yes, it worked out just right for a size. Jasmine, what did you get out of today?
Same, the No Surprise Act, I didn't know about that. Also the review about the HIV in terms of disclosing and everything that goes along with that. Also, Stacy, what you just said in terms of the other way around, that if we're on vacation, so if you're in California, you can do, like you said, you're able to do telehealth. Not that I do a lot of it. Most of everything I do is in office, but I have a few that you can be away. And you can still do, still meet with your clients as long as they're in Florida.
Right.
Right. So I did not know.
Or in my case, Arizona.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I did not know that. I didn't know the other way around was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So your licensure has to be in the state where the client is.
Right.
You can be on a world cruise.
Oh, okay.
But you have to be licensed where the client is. Yes. And I have fantasies of taking a world cruise and continuing to work. That's a high fantasy. Shirley, it sounds like you'd like to do that too. Cynthia, you had your hand up. You had your hand up, Cynthia.
I'm going on the world cruise, but I'm not working while I'm on it.
What about snowbirds then? If a person has a residence in Florida and in Massachusetts or Maine, right?
Goes back to what Cynthia said about how many sessions or time, or what is the law. So if you see them in Florida and they spend half the time in Michigan, you have to find out what Michigan says, or you have to get licensed in Michigan. And I'm happy to tell you it is very easy to get licensed in Michigan. I am licensed in Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida. So Michigan was easy to get. Cynthia, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is there a listserv? Are there listservs here in South Florida? In Maryland, there are a lot of different listservs that therapists are and ask questions like this. I mean, I know there's Facebook things, but is there a listserv that's private where people can ask ethical questions and things? Because I learn a lot of stuff from that, but it's not pertinent to Florida necessarily.
I mean, I suppose FFTA could look into doing something like that. I'm not quite sure how it would look. I think for now, Facebook is the place where you could ask. But it sounds like you're wanting to know where one could ask, perhaps anonymously, and get feedback.
It's not anonymous because it's an email that goes out to a group. Like we have DC Metro, so Virginia, Maryland, DC, because they're all across the river from each other. That family therapist, there's family therapist DC, there's, all these listservs that people, can say, I'm looking for a therapist to see an individual or a couple, or, and people say, ask, if I have a client who works in Maryland, but they live in Virginia, can I see them in telehealth? So people ask these kind of questions, and, people who are knowledgeable can, you always need to check and read, but it's very helpful. There's therapists who moderate, at these, so they are checked for content, and you have to be a member. It's confidential, but you are not anonymous, and it, and your thing can be taken, like your email, they can say, that's not allowed, you can't sell things, this kind of thing. But I find it, and also it's very collegial, and there's get-togethers, and I've met people through that, so I was just wondering if people did that here.
Not that I'm aware of, Staci.
Not that I'm aware of.
There's a couple large Facebook groups that do that.
Yeah.
I think there is some, like, honestly, it's not like what you're talking about. There can be a little, you'd have to discern what you're hearing there. There's no liability. There are people giving their opinions.
Right.
It's not a professional that's going to take the risk on. I personally don't post in any of them. I sometimes get a good laugh out of what's getting posted in them.
Yeah. But because not everybody's on Facebook, and so and professionally, I don't know how secure groups are on Facebook, so I would be hesitant.
It's a private group. Those are private groups that you have to go through some. Yeah.
I think I'm in them, but I was just wondering because I really missed.
Well, my fantasy, as you say that, is would be to have an ethical question hotline, right, where you could call in and get a response, and it could be anonymous, right? So well, let's wrap it up here. Annette, what are you taking away from tonight?
First of all, it's just great to see a lot of you. I haven't seen you. I know this is virtually, but so it's good to see you. And there's some of you out there that I just totally value your professional opinions. So fun hearing from you tonight and seeing you, and then meeting a few new faces. But I always like all the ethics stuff. I can't think of anything new I got, but I do like all of the vernacular and verbiage and the way everybody puts things to their clients and how they say it. And I'm sure I'll be hearing myself over the next few months say things slightly different because of your influence here tonight. All of you. Thank you. And I also would like to say that Anna Lynn is my personal listserv. If anyone,
wonderful.
I think she's everybody's personal listserv, but she's probably getting tired of it. So if I really have a serious question, I'm probably going to text Anna Lynn and hope she'll get back to me soon.
That's nice. I'll have to retire so I can do all this full time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Richard, what did you get out of tonight?
The thing that intrigues me is that we're all sort of in a professional growth mode. You know, I mean, I suppose in some ways, you know, you sort of think about interns and they're trying to develop and their skills or whatever it is. But I think, you know, as I look at us as professional adults, we're all on this kind of path where we're sort of fine tuning our work. What are our interests? What do we want to do? And as we do that fine tuning, it comes up against some sort of ethical, moral set of dilemmas that have to get worked through. And I think that's exciting. You know, that the person that we were 5 years ago, you know, is not the person we are now. And it's not the person we're becoming. And it's all exciting to kind of hear, oh, I need to think about that. I didn't have to think about that earlier, but now I do.
Yeah.
And it could be, you know, as I said, it could be because we're trying a new therapeutic approach. It could be we're changing the audience, target audience that we're working with. Could be the modality we're using in telehealth versus in person, whatever it is, I think that's exciting because it creates a set of ethical issues for us with all of that growth to change.
Yeah, good.
Well, Amanda, you have been so quiet and attentive the whole time. What did you get out of hearing a bunch of licensed people yammer on about this stuff?
Well, I just thought the examples and everything were super helpful. And just the overview overall just kind of helps me like think about how I want to present myself in my practice later on and stuff too. So
yeah.
Yeah, good. You were wise to get this early. Most of us don't have to do this. We've already tripped over a few things. So so very, very wise to come early.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I have all of your emails because those of you who registered, it includes an email. So what I'll be doing, and it may not happen until Saturday, I will be inputting this into CE Broker. I will be sending to you an evaluation, which you can complete. I believe it is electronic, so that you don't have to like print it off and do it in scan. You know, it's electronic. You can just do it and then attach it in an email back to me, so I have that on record, and then I can send you a certificate. So, so that's the plan. And yes, Shirley?
Just asking, so you don't have to have our input of our license number to do that with CE Broker?
What I'll probably do is look you up. Because I can go in and look everybody up.
Okay, fine.
If I look you up and I can't find you, then I will reach out to you to say, hey, I'm not finding your license number. You know, what name are you under? Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
I'll look you up so that I know you're all legit. Okay. All right. I hope to see you just as hang on one second.